Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for March the 6th of 2020. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams and this is a daily gaming news podcast meant to bring you the hottest news you need to know from around the industry. Hosted on YouTube and podcast platforms around the world 5 days a week, this is your one-stop shop for all of the news you need to know. And today we have a rumor that needs to be quelched. If that is the correct way to say that, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was hypothetically not going to have legitimate safe rooms, as in Nemesis, the giant Goliath of an individual you've probably seen on all of the promotional material, could just Kool-Aid Man through the door and take you out when you're trying to save the game on your typewriter. That's not going to be the case. You have nothing to fear. On top of that, speaking of fears, the coronavirus has continued to take its toll on the tech and gaming industries, with TwitchCon Amsterdam and the TurboGrafx-16 Mini both seeing some concerns when it comes to if and when we'll actually see them. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Then indie horror classic Amnesia is getting a sequel, and bidding has concluded on the Nintendo PlayStation console hybrid, and it actually, shockingly, was not that expensive. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top gaming news. First off, don't worry, Resident Evil 3 safe rooms are safe, as confirmed by Capcom. The Nemesis is relentless in Resident Evil 3, but you will still be safe in the series' traditional safe rooms. Capcom has confirmed that despite early reports, the Nemesis will definitely not be able to enter Resident Evil 3's designated safe rooms, and we are all breathing a collective sigh of relief. The big bad of Resident Evil 3 is certainly relentless, and unlike Mr. X, can and will break down doors in his pursuit of Jill. But thankfully, certain areas are still off limits to the big bully. In this month's official Xbox Magazine hands-on preview of the game, OXM reported on needing to dodge past the Nemesis when he broke into a room with a progress-saving typewriter. This location was not, in fact, a designated safe room. The clues in the music, as is traditional in the Resi franchise, and not all save points are in safe rooms. OXM will have more confirmation from Capcom next week on just how big a threat the Nemesis poses in Resident Evil 3, plus clarification on Jill's use of the Racoon City subway, and more on just what iconic monsters we can expect to return from the original 1999 game. So for those that have never played Resident Evil, or I would even say if you haven't played Resident Evil 2's remake from just a couple of months back, was that 2019? I feel like that was 2019. Yeah, it was either 2019. Gosh, the years fly by. But regardless, there are these save rooms where essentially you can have zombies breaking through windows, you can have Mr. X, the tyrant chasing you down hallways in Resident Evil 2's remake, and then you'll find a safe room which has a little bit friendlier lighting and a typewriter that you can save your game on. That's essentially the core mechanic of the game. You can take a breather. It's a nice, safe space. However, rumors began to circulate on Twitter very quickly that guess what? There are no more safe rooms that are legitimately safe because, again, you could just see the Nemesis just bust through the door, which would pretty much eliminate any kind of safety in the game whatsoever. And in my opinion, Resident Evil would not be the same without these safe rooms, and I think that it would be a lesser game without them because it is just a game. It would be nice to be able to, I don't know, feel safe to go take a leak, maybe quit the game for the night and just save your space. It's a lot to take in, but I think that would be a pretty good move, and it looks like that is what we are going to be continuing to have in the remake of the 1999 classic. Now again, I saw many podcasts reporting on this today, and I did want to make it very clear that no, Resident Evil 3 will not have safe rooms. You are going to be able to save your game in a very safe location, far away from this god-awful beast of an individual. Of course, image courtesy of Capcom. But regardless, Resident Evil 3 is still just a few months away, but TwitchCon Amsterdam is canceled altogether because it has been canceled over the coronavirus. If you were hoping to enjoy a night out on the town at TwitchCon Amsterdam in May, then you are going to be disappointed to learn that TwitchCon Amsterdam is the latest event to find itself canceled due to coronavirus concerns. Quote, "We have been monitoring coronavirus concerns," begins the official announcement on the TwitchCon page. It continues, "And having weighed the potential health risk to our community, we have made an incredibly difficult decision to cancel TwitchCon Amsterdam." The post then continues by stating, "TwitchCon is the best weekend to..." Can I just say one quick little interjection here? They just made an entire article out of literally chopping up the announcement into 3 different paragraphs, all divided by TwitchCon's announcement continues or something similar. Just say your commentary piece and let me read the original thing. might be worth considering. I'm not going to finish reading this. You guys know how it goes. The coronavirus, people are afraid. No one wants to travel. No one wants to get sick. So therefore, events are getting canceled and things are getting delayed. That's just kind of how the world works. Now, TwitchCon Amsterdam has been officially canceled for 2020. And this is not really a shocker considering we are still in the midst of a very tense time when it comes to worries about getting sick, worries about potentially spreading the disease, worries about giant events where a lot of people travel from around the world to congeal in one location. That's not exactly the best option when it comes to having a giant global near pandemic taking its hold. So with that being said, now TwitchCon has joined GDC in being a canceled event, and I would not be shocked next week to see E3 get canceled as well, because I know that they are monitoring the situation closely. But as of right now, California is in a state of emergency, so it probably is not going to be the best location to hold a giant convention with thousands of people. Just my 2 cents on that one. But we will see what happens, and of course you can always stay tuned on Twitter for the companies that are going to be announcing their latest changes to their plans, including E3, including potentially any kind of PAX events that are coming up. Any big global event, you're probably going to have some kind of cancellation, at least in the next few weeks. Speaking of cancellations and delays, the TurboGrafx-16 Mini will not ship until March due to coronavirus. Or I should say won't ship in March. Ooh, that's very foreboding. The mini console is delayed until further notice. Oh no. The TurboGrafx-16 Mini console will miss its March 19th release day due to ongoing issues with the coronavirus, and Konami does not have a replacement release window in mind. It is delayed indefinitely. Regarding the PC Engine Core graphics mini console and its peripheral accessories, the manufacturing and shipping facilities in China have encountered an unavoidable suspension due to the current coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak, Konami said in a statement posted on the console's official website. As a result, the delivery of all PC Engine Core graphics mini products, which was originally scheduled for March 19th, 2020, will be delayed until further notice. We deeply apologize to our customers for the significant inconvenience, and we humbly ask for your understanding and patience while we keep our close attention on the situation. We are investing all of our efforts to deliver the PC Engine Core graphics mini as soon as possible, and will provide further details on the delivery timing once confirmed, end quote. Now, of course, the author on Destructoid says, I didn't realize how close the mini console was to release. It snuck up on them, and it snuck up on me as well, because I didn't realize this was actually still coming out. I completely forgot this thing was happening, but it makes sense to delay it indefinitely, and I'll tell you why. Because if you were to say, have some kind of hypothetical release time frame, let's say you were originally going to be shipping worldwide on March the 19th. Let's say you have a loose date of May 19th. That seems like a pretty reasonable estimation if you do assume that the production is still going. It's just not going to be shipped and it's going to have some hindrances. 2 months, pretty good amount of time. If you do say that and then things continue to go downhill, that's when you're going to run into an issue, because people will continue to get ticked off after you delay once, then again, then maybe a third time, who knows, a fourth time. Much better to delay indefinitely and then say, hey, guess what? This is coming next month whenever everything does settle back down. So if you were looking forward to the TurboGrafx-16 Mini, not shipping in March instead has been delayed indefinitely. However, we have a new announcement. Indie horror classic Amnesia is getting a sequel called Rebirth. Amnesia Rebirth will retain the Lovecraftian horror style of the original game. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was a breath of fresh air when it hit PCs in 2010, and rather than using Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or any of the other classic survival horror games as a template, it created a unique and exploratory take on the genre. It quickly became a classic both as a game and as a live streaming sensation. 10 years later, fans will finally be able to play a sequel. Frictional Games announced Amnesia Rebirth today and assured players that the game will stay true to the original's roots. Quote, no gimmicks, no inventing something completely new. This is Amnesia, said Thomas Grip, the studio's creative director. At the same time, he says that the team has twisted expectations and refined the gameplay, and the trailer makes it clear that the setting is pretty different compared to Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which took place in a Victorian castle. Rebirth seems to take place in an underground tunnel system, likely in Europe. Given the cult following of the original game, fans will likely be highly anticipating the release of Amnesia Rebirth, and while Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs was released in 2013, the game was not developed by Frictional and was an indirect follow-up to the first game. Rebirth's announcement was made on the official PlayStation blog, and the trailer includes PlayStation branding, so the sequel might be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, or at least a timed exclusive. The game will be out this fall. In fact, the release time frame says autumn 2020, so you can probably expect it sometime around August, September, if I did have to guess. Now, what's interesting about this is the look of the game. Of course, it looks vastly different. I don't even know what that word is. It looks vastly different as compared to 2010's game as far as the aesthetics go. It is much better looking because, again, that is 10 years of advancement, and I think that's something that is pretty impressive to say the least. But I'm excited to see what this one does in the world of live streaming. Of course, I'm not big on the horror games. I have played stuff like Outlast. I believe that those are probably my favorite horror games, but when it comes to jump scares and stuff, just never really has been my cup of tea. But I do want to get back and play Blair Witch, I will say that. But interested to see what happens with Amnesia. Of course, Rebirth now coming out in autumn of 2020. Not August, don't quote me on that one. Could be August. I consider that part of autumn, but glad to see it's actually happening, and I know a lot of fans out there are as well. But to round out today's episode of the Jampack Report, the Nintendo PlayStation bidding war fizzled out at auction, and it sold for a mere $300,000. That's around $380,000 after fees, and still a record, but it looks like a high spender interest really peaked weeks ago. When the only known Nintendo PlayStation prototype, a 1992 collaboration with Sony on a SNES with a CD drive, went up for auction last month, the bids started to climb quickly. After about a day, and with a few weeks to go before the final auction, it looked like the console would sell for at least $350,000. Instead, it sold today for $300,000 with an added $80,000 in fees going to the auction house. At this time, it is unknown who won the auction. After the early bidding approached $300,000, Oculus founder Palmer Luckey came forward as one of the high bidders, saying he intended to add the unit to what he claims is the world's largest collection of video game consoles. The high figure and Lucky's comments sparked response on social media, with many gesturing to the amount of good a six-figure donation could do for other game preservation efforts. The Nintendo PlayStation's previous owner, Terry Diebold, announced his plans to sell the console last year. Speaking with Kotaku, Diebold said he once turned down an offer of $1.2 million for the prototype from a collector in Norway, but Diebold also said that after splitting that seven-figure sum halfway with his son, paying taxes, and paying down debts, he wouldn't have much to show for it. Ahead of today's live auction session, the high proxy bid for the Nintendo PlayStation fell from $350,000 to $280,000, and Ars Technica reports that during today's bidding period, only one bid of an added $20,000 was lodged, resulting in a final $300,000 price paid. Still, that is a record auction price for a single piece of gaming equipment, smashing the record set last year by the $100,000 sale of a near-mint Super Mario Bros. Copy. Since 2015, when Diebold's son discovered the unit in his father's possession, the Nintendo PlayStation has been extensively toured around the world and shown off at retro game shows and conventions. Console modder Ben Heckendorm was also given the opportunity to take the console apart, document its internals, and attempt to restore any unique functionality. Though this is the only confirmed model still in existence, we do know that others were made. This one might vanish from the public eye as it enters a private collection, but one or more of its siblings could still surface at any time. Kind of feels like a golden ticket situation with Willy Wonka going on here. It's like, ooh, who's got the next one? You know, I would love to see more of these come to light. But this was a very strange piece of gaming history. And of course, we talked about the announcement that it was going to be going to auction. But the main thing I want to focus on here is imagine that you had an offer for $1.2 million and you said, nah, I can give more. And then you got that, which don't get me wrong, $300,000 plus fees, $300,000 really comes down to $300,000 is still a considerable amount of money. It's still going to be plenty to, give you a bit of a boost when it comes to your income and your finances. But still, man, that would really be some salt in the wound. But interesting to see the conclusion of this saga. And if I had a spare $300,000 lying around that I would just throw at a random piece of old video game memorabilia, you better believe I would have been right there on the front row throwing some bids down. But that rounds out today's and this week's episodes of the Jampack Report. Of course, if you enjoyed this one, be sure to drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about today's show, the news we talked about, and of course, Resident Evil 3. Would you be playing it? Are you going to be afraid of Nemesis? What do you think about the game? Would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below or on Twitter at PrettyChillGuy. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.